Here are the top AI selections for the Belmont Stakes today. And what I thought I would do is present the AI selections, but then also go through and give you guys some stats. This is going to be a very unique edition of the Belmont Stakes in that it's being run at Saratoga, and it's also 10 furlongs instead of 12. So some of the historical stuff that I usually look at is just simply not going to be germane to this year's edition. But the AI analysis, and you can see it, I've got it right on the screen, literally made no changes to it whatsoever. I did make some changes in the prompts from the last time I tried this. And if you remember, the last time I tried this in the Kentucky Derby, it was terrible. So we'll see. Yesterday was a pretty good day using some of these new prompts. So we'll see how this goes. The top selection in the Belmont Stakes, and I can't say I disagree, is Seize the Gray. Here's the situation in the Belmont Stakes in a nutshell. The projected ESR, that's my early speed ration, my own measurement of early energy disbursement, is just a -5. Now, Seize the Gray in each of his last two races has exceeded that par. He went a -7 in the Preakness and a -16 when he won the Pat Day Mile. The fact that it's a mile and a quarter, I think, also helps him. And there's another factor that we'll talk about in just a little bit that I think is huge that is also in his favor. And this is why pace handicapping is always so difficult, because pretty much any horse can run fast early. Running fast late is a little bit different because the fatigue has set in. But running fast early, pretty much any horse can do it. That's what they do in workouts. So is Dornick going to go? That's a question. How about mind frame? And depending on whether or not they go and how fast they go early, they could press that pace to an uncomfortable level. If it turns out to be the projected pace of -5, I think Sierra Leone is in trouble here, and especially given that he's a favorite. It's not that he's not a good horse, but you just don't want to take low prices when there are these kinds of question marks. The third AI selection in the Belmont Stakes is Mindframe. And Mindframe, I think, is the most talented horse in the race, but he's very lightly raced. He's had just 2 starts. Those 2 starts were outstanding, but this is a big ask in the Belmont Stakes. Now let's look at some stats that I think will really help clarify the Belmont Stakes picture. All these stats are since 2000, and again, I want to emphasize the change in distance, the change in venue. I tried to pick out stats that I thought were still relevant given that change. So if you look at horses with less than 3 lifetime starts, 0 for 6 in the Belmont Stakes. The horse that qualifies this year is Mindframe. I mentioned the 2 workouts since the last race. This could be a little bit influenced by the distance. Obviously, when you're going 12 furlongs, you got to work on that endurance. So having those workouts is very important. I've talked to other handicappers who look at the distance of the workouts. So all of those things, I think, play a part. But you'll notice that horses with less than 2 workouts since their last race, just a 0.32 impact value and a $1.28 net return. That means for every $2 that you bet, you get $1.28 back on average. And the qualifiers this year, Seize the Gray and Mystic Dam. I talked about the Kieran points, 6 Kieran speed points or greater, a 0.58 impact value, a 21-cent return. That's Antiquarian and Mindframe. Here, the idea, just like in the Kentucky Derby, is not that you can't wire this race. In fact, that's a great advantage when you can set an uncontested pace. But you don't want to be a confirmed frontrunner. You want to have that adaptability. When Secretariat wired the Belmont Stakes, Secretariat is not known as a front-running horse per se. I mean, Secretariat could basically do it all. But he saw an advantage, or Ron Turcotte, the jockey, saw an advantage in taking the lead that day. They actually went a -6 ESR, and I think the pace was 46 and something for the opening half. Very fast track, though, so that's why that ESR is a little bit slower. At least 1 win at Saratoga. I thought this was interesting. I've done this in the past with at least 1 win at Belmont. So I thought, well, what about 1 win at Saratoga? And keep in mind, these stats were accumulated when the Belmont Stakes was run at Belmont, yet it's still a pretty good factor. And there's that name again, Seize the Gray and the Wine Seward, the only 2 horses to have won at Saratoga. And by the way, the names in green, that's a positive factor. When it's in red, that's a negative factor. Here's the biggie to me. Earned a par speed figure of at least 100 in his last race. There is just 1 horse that qualifies this year. It is Seize the Gray, ran a 102. Take a look at those numbers. A 1.95 impact value. That means they're winning about twice as often as they should, and a 650 return. So that alone, coupled with the pace advantage, And then the AI selection, that's where I think Seize the Gray. You got to use him regardless. And then you could look at some scenarios maybe where the pace is too fast and keep him out of there. But he's definitely a big contender. This is another one that's a big one for me in these kinds of races because improving is so important in the Triple Crown. And of course, we see it every year. The horses on the Derby Trail and favored on the Derby Trail, the horses that people are looking at aren't always the horses that we see at the end of the year being considered for year-end honors. So if you look at the February foals, yeah, the Wine Seward, that's generally negative. March foals, it's kind of a mixed bag, pretty good return, but the impact value is a little bit low. April and May is really where you want to be here, and there you have Dornick, Seize the Gray, Antiquarian, Honor Marie, and Mindframe. One other thing before I wrap this up, and that is form means practically nothing in the Belmont Stakes. There have been so many horses that have reversed their form in the Belmont Stakes. So if you have a horse coming off a bad race, I wouldn't be that concerned about that. If there are other reasons you like the horse, I would tell you to still play it. Anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this. If you like these kinds of videos, please like the video and subscribe. But I hope you have a great Belmont Stakes day.